I am Doug Friedman.
And I am Meredith Levy.
And this is
Your Mental Breakdown.
The podcast and so much more.
And so much more. So today, guys, giving you a warning about this. This episode contains some potentially triggering topics, including sexual assault. And we want to give you a heads up about that. If you listen to it and by the end you're feeling uncomfortable or feel like you need some support, you can call the National Sexual Assault Hotline at 1-800-656-4673. Or you can also go to RAINN.org. It's an anti-sexual violence organization. It's RAINN.org.
And there's a lot of resources on that page. They've got really good stuff to get into. And the phone number, again, 1-800-656-HOPE.
For the National Sexual Assault Hotline.
Mm-hmm.
So today, because this is a sensitive topic and because I have a lot to say, so does Doug, we're going to skip our usual chit-chatty intro. We're going to play the episode for you. And then when we come back, we're going to break down the actual therapy session and also talk about the actual topics that are brought up in the session.
We've listened to the session ourselves. I mean, I was there for it, but I listened again, and we haven't really talked about it yet. We kind of wanted to save that for you guys so you can hear what it sounds like when two therapists and longtime friends are talking about some pretty sensitive stuff and somewhat agreeing, but not always agreeing.
Right.
That'll be what it looks like or what it sounds like.
So stick around. We're going to play the session, and then we will come back and discuss.
Had a crazy, really fucked up week last week. Long story short, and I will get into it as the conversation goes on, but just so you kind of know, girlfriend was raped on Thursday night.
Whoa.
Yeah, she was like basically kidnapped against her will. And if I didn't have her location, I mean, I don't know if she'd still be here.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was scariest night of my life. So I went down there at like 3:00 in the morning. I met her there, and then we went to the police station, did all that. And then we ended up flying out together because I was like, I'm not going to leave you here. Like, I can't, I'm going to cancel my trip. And she didn't want me to. So I was like, all right, well, come with me. And that ended up being an amazing trip. Like probably one of the best trips I've ever had in my life, which was really good. But we're still going through of what happened and processing it and trying to figure it out. It's always something, man. It's always something.
True. It's always something. This is pretty extraordinary. I mean, this almost feeds a lot of your fears, almost your worst fears about if I'm not there, if I'm not taking care of, something horrible could happen.
Yep.
So you'll walk me through what was going on, but part of me is listening for your story in this, because you're going to tell me a lot of her story and maybe a little bit about what happened to you. I'm going to hear yours, and we're going to get into your story for sure.
So her and her sister went out drinking, have a good day, talking to him here and there throughout, checking in. She was checking with me, like it was fine. And then she ended up getting in a fight with her sister. And then that led to her basically leaving her sister. Sister knew the group that they were with. Girlfriend didn't. And so girlfriend was like, well, fine, I'm leaving. One of the guys was like, I'll take you home. Ended up going out and drinking and doing all this other stuff because she thought her sister was at home. And she's like, well, I don't want to go there right now. And I'm talking to her through the whole thing. I'm saying go home anywhere but with that guy.
Right.
And right then, I knew something was wrong because she wasn't coherently there. I've seen her drunk plenty of times. She wasn't just drunk. And if she did take something, she would have told me. I'm not worried about that at all. But the hard part for me is she put herself in this position. She made decisions throughout the night that led up to what happened, not what happened to her. I want to completely separate those two. I'm more talking about the sister fighting, her leaving, not going home, all of that kind of combined. And I've talked to her about this, it was bad decisions that led up to something that's unimaginable and completely not her fault. I don't blame her for any of it.
Right.
It was all on him, and I talked to him. I talked to this guy. He was like, don't worry, I'm taking her home. I'm a very respectful man. And he's talking to her mom too. Yes, I'm on the way for 3 hours. For 3 hours, he's telling her mom that he was taking her home and it was just taking longer than expected. And that's when her mom had called the police and said, hey, something's wrong. It was around 2:00 in the morning. I'm up talking to her, trying to get her to go home. Hey, you're not right. Something's up. Like, I don't know what, but trust me, somebody gave you something. Get the fuck out of there. And then I saw her on her location. She texted me. She's like, hey, I'm going home now. And then like 10 minutes later, she's like, I'm so scared. Please help. And so I'm trying to call her, but she was basically like, yo, you're trying to get me killed if you keep calling me. He's so mad. He's going to hurt me and all this stuff. And she eventually locked herself in the bathroom after everything that happened and was bawling. Oh my God, I'm so scared.
At this guy's place at this point?
Yeah. And so I'm like, just stay in the bathroom. Don't move. I'm on the phone with 911 for the last 30 minutes. And they're like, do you know where she is? And I'm trying to describe it because I have her on my phone of where her location is, but that doesn't show you a physical address. And so I'm trying to describe it to these people and they're questioning me on all of it. And I'm like, Liz, can you just get to the house and we'll ask questions later? Like, I can't, time is of the essence. Please just fucking get there. And kind of like 10 minutes later, the sheriffs had arrived kind of in the area. And I'm like, okay, babe, run. Just get the fuck out of the house, run, leave all your stuff. It doesn't matter. Just get out. And that's exactly what we were on the phone together while she was running out. The sheriff was right down the street. So they picked her up. And then I got there shortly after that. I need to make sure that she's said, like, everything, she's safe before I leave the house. So cops were there. She was okay. Probably got down there around 4 or 5. And I keep replaying all this in my head, trying to make sense of it. And I've kind of come to the conclusion that it doesn't make sense. I have so many questions that I'm not going to answer half of them. And it's just not worth it at this point. She's safe now. The biggest part when this all was going on was I was in the mindset of she cheated on me, not that she was in a fucked up position and got hurt. And so I feel really guilty about that just because, this is exactly on paper what happened with me and old girlfriend. Found her at some dude's house. I thought kind of at midnight, the same thing was going on. I was like, who the fuck is this guy? Why is this going on? What is happening? We've had long conversations over the last couple of days of what that looked like and why she was even in that position. And drinking and alcohol and all of that kind of was a trigger and a catalyst to a lot of this. And so it's been a big eye-opener for her and for me.
For you, how?
I let go a lot of my past animosities of being hurt in all of this. Because at the end of the day, like it just didn't matter what happened. I just wanted to make sure she was safe. So that's where my head's at. It's like, you're still here. Oh my God, I'm so blessed that you're still here and you're alive.
Of course. And I'm going to put a pin in something. I'm going to challenge you from a place of love. I'm not going to do it right this second because we got to process some of this. But there's a couple of things that you were talking about and how you're talking about it that we're going to look at from your perspective. We're going to look at from your story. It's about your overall pattern too. It's about your story and what happens to you. Because the end result of this is she's still alive. She's okay. So everything's all right. It's not all right.
Yeah.
It's not okay.
Yeah.
It's really not.
Yeah.
We'll get to that in a moment or, next week or something. We need to. There's still, it doesn't take away from you did come to the rescue.
Right.
And swept her off to Seattle with you and got to go home and recharge. You said it was the best trip ever. Yeah, I want to honor that too.
Yeah.
Then we'll look at some of the other stuff. But dude, that is, unfortunately second nature for you to be there, to take care of stuff, that hypervigilance and making sure everything's okay and dropping everything to go do that. And you did it because you get something out of it. You're good at it. There's a reward for it. And you were great. That's Superman with the cape.
Yeah.
It was also really, really scary.
Yeah. Probably the scariest thing I've ever been through. I was powerless. There was nothing I could do.
Yeah. How much weed you smoked that night?
Going down there, I was like, fuck that. I'm not getting high. We sat and talked for hours before we smoked. We were both like, man, we need to figure this out and sit and talk and walk through it and not pretend like it didn't happen.
That's allowing it in, right? couple of directions to go here, and I'll let you steer this one. You can tell me about Seattle and how that trip was. You can tell me about the conversation with her. You can tell me about where you guys are now, because that's a hugely impactful night. And we'll also scratch at, similar to old girlfriend, what else isn't she telling me? Am I getting the whole truth? How do I trust?
Right. I don't know. I've been on a roller coaster of emotion the last couple of days. I saw the police report on both sides, and from his story and her story. Talked to the lead detective on it, and I mean, he came at it from a perspective of trying to help me out and give me information to make my own decision, in the sense of like putting the pieces together of what happened that night. Because from police, I mean, it looked like she was drunk and went back to his house, but they were on the phone with her all night and getting the text. I mean, she didn't lie to me at all, and she could have. She fully could have lied to me about the whole thing, and I would have never known. From a cheating perspective, it's not in my head anymore. That's not how I see this. It's not part of it. And that's really allowed me to take the Superman cape and kind of put it on a little bit better versus the I just want to fix everything. Like, I just want to fix it right now and make sure it's okay. It's now more, am I okay? And what happened? How does it affect me? How do I feel right now? What am I doing to walk through it and not avoid it? Because I mean, I haven't really been smoking pot that much over the last couple of days, because I've really wanted to walk through this with her and not just get fucked up and sleep on the couch for a couple of days and wake up and be like, oh, well, it's been some days, so we're good now.
Yeah, pause for a second. I really wanted to walk through this with her.
Yeah.
I want to walk through it with just you. Yeah, what's my story? What am I thinking? And that's what I'm talking about too. Like, what's your version? What's the story? What happened to you during all of this? Because when you put the cape on, you're taking care of her. You're making sure she's okay. You're taking care of the situation. You're doing everything for everyone else. Okay? Let's do something for you. Walk me through that night. Walk me through, the next few hours, even the next few days. And let's talk about your story. You're going to love and hate me during this, because every time you start drifting into her story or what she was, I'm going to snap you back to this, because I want us to talk about what happened to you. This was traumatic for you in a different way, and it taps into a lot of past trauma.
Mm-hmm. I kind of thought she was going through the whole old girlfriend situation. Right before she told me that she was like really fucking scared, I was like, well, fuck you then. And I put my phone on silent and rolled over and was going to go to sleep. And then I was like, hold on, I have an intuition. Let me just look at my phone one more time. And so I was like, okay. And so that's really been fucking with my head too.
How so?
I've built so much self-confidence over the last year of being okay with my boundaries and not letting those be pushed, and building strength in that. And then a situation like this happens where I think I'm having boundaries and I think I'm doing what's right for myself. And then I wake up to these kind of texts and these kind of calls. And this is exactly why I am the way I am, of being Superman, because this shit has happened to me before. I'm not saying it happens to me all the time, but it has happened before. My mom specifically. And to the point where if I didn't answer some of her texts, she probably wouldn't be here either. And so I look at that and it makes me go both ways on what I did and how I went about it. On half of me, I'm extremely proud of the way I handled it for as long as I handled it. Because I did have boundaries throughout the night of like, hey, I'm not okay with this. And if you do this, then we're going to have to talk. And like, I'm really not okay with what you're doing right now. The decision she made, I was not okay with to begin with, no matter what happened. She didn't fuck up in the sense of like cheating on me. I'm just not okay with her going out with dudes she doesn't know. And like, she shouldn't either. That's not what I want in a relationship.
What do you want?
I want somebody that's confident in themselves enough to be like, I'm not having fun. I want to go home. Or I don't know these people. I shouldn't be here.
Are you sure? Because that's not your mom. That's not old girlfriend. That's not girlfriend. That's not what you're used to. That's not somebody that wants you to put on a cape.
Right.
Who the fuck are you if you're not putting on a cape and rescuing somebody?
I want to go home and be happy. I don't want to have to rescue everybody. I want give and take. I want the 50-50. The last couple of days have been really good for me and girlfriend's relationship. I mean, even driving down there, I was like, I can't date somebody that's doing this. And I don't want her in my life if this is what it's going to be. And I've really thought long and hard about it on what happened and why it happened. And I've made a lot of mistakes in my life too. And it was just bad decisions. It wasn't intentional. It wasn't from my perspective,
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't malicious. It wasn't intentional. It wasn't, she tried to do it. And it wasn't like she was trying to sneak behind my back to do so. With all of that, it puts me in a weird mindset. I've never gone through anything like this. So I don't really want to talk about it. But another man stole my grace. It's just very hard for me to sit back and do nothing. But that's what I've found is best for me right now. Is just to sit and be and talk. I'm not really sure if we should talk about anything or do anything. I just need to be right now. And I was like, it really scares me. I don't know what happened. I don't know how you felt about him. I don't know if you liked it. I don't know if you didn't like it. You know, and these are the questions that I think are fucked up because of course she didn't like it. Like, of course she didn't like it. Of course, like it was bad. And, you know, I was on the phone with her. I still have those thoughts of like, well, did you like it a little bit? It's like these kind of questions that are fucking with me. But I know that's Vader. Like I know 100% in my mind it's Vader.
There's a flip to this too, a little bit, because I'll ask those same questions of you. You put yourself in this position too.
Mm-hmm.
And did you like it a little bit?
Not at all.
No. You're good at it. It's stressful. It's actually traumatic.
Yeah. So it hurts really bad.
Yeah. And the thing about trauma, when you get traumatized like this, it's a trigger and it brings you back to all of the traumatized times. And they all come back and it's all one thing because that's what we hold on to. That's our memory bank. That's what gets scratched. That's what comes up.
Yeah.
You might have gone up to Seattle the next day and like, you were still in rescue mode. Who rescues you?
Myself.
We got to make sure we really do.
Yeah.
When I say, well, did you like it? A little bit? Nope. And you put yourself in this position, not knowingly, to some degree, unconsciously, we put ourselves in positions that are familiar to us because we know the role so well. And you can heal from this. You can heal with her.
Mm-hmm.
You can heal from her.
Yeah.
As long as we're not repeating these same patterns and putting ourselves in these situations.
Yep, exactly. And that's what I said to her too. It was part of our big conversation of, I can't do this again. From an emotional, from a mental, from everything that I just went through, I can never do that again. And you can't put yourself in a position to even come close to that ever again. And she's like, no, I don't want to.
Yes, she can.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a rule. You can't put yourself, she sure can.
But she doesn't want to. When I say I don't want to, I mean it. And so I don't want to lose trust in humanity as a whole. And I want to trust her. And I do trust her. I really do. I'm at almost a crossroads, but my mind isn't, I want to leave. Everybody in my life so far has been like, yo, maybe you should think about this. And it's like, no, I know what I want. It's my relationship. You know what I mean? And I'm more talking about my mom in this. She called me today and she was like, are you sure she's the one? And I'm like, what the fuck, mom? Like, this is my choice, not yours. It's finally in my court to make my own decisions. It's really fucking thrown me for a loop and I hurt a lot and it was tragic. And for me, it was tragic for me to have to go through this again. And I don't know how I feel about it. I don't know.
Well, you've described some of how you feel. I think the key right now is I'm not going to make an impulsive decision right now from this place. I'm not going to have her move in with me right now. And I'm not going to break up with her right now. I'm going to go, okay, this is good information. When you say you can't do that again, and why I said, sure she can. It's you can do that again. I will be gone.
Right.
That's the boundary.
I know in myself, if something like this even comes close to coming into my life again, I'm out. I'm out.
Something like this, because it's happened before where she was drinking.
Yeah, the way I've just been kind of like thinking about our relationship and everything. Yeah, she drinks, but who doesn't?
I don't buy that shit. Sorry, dude.
But okay, so where I want to go with that is I love her for who she is right now. And like, I'm okay with how much she drinks. She's not blacking out at 10 o'clock in the morning. She did once and like, it was a fucked up day and we talked about it and we learned. And we're moving and we're growing and we're progressing together. This is a fucked up learning lesson to have to go through. And I hope that's exactly what it is, a learning lesson for me, myself, and what I want and what's next. Now I'm that person saying, oh, I never thought this would happen to me. And so with that, I'm looking at, well, why did it happen to me? Like, what led to this? And you look over the last 4 months, and nobody's really taking the time to like hear why I like her. And not you, I mean my parents and like the police and like my friends, and like, well, why am I even in this?
Let me ask you something a little differently. Why do you like you in this relationship?
Because she allows me to be myself in every way possible. This is the first time I've genuinely been like, yeah, I have $13 and I'm okay with that because I love you. And she looks right back at me and says, oh, you have $13? We'll figure it out. Or vice versa. Oh, you had a hard day at work? All right, let's figure it out. Or in the good times, you know, I really enjoyed this. All the things that I've kind of like listed as far as like what I want in a relationship, it's all there. It's just there's some other shit too.
Yeah. And what I'm driving at is what I want in a relationship, how I want to be in a relationship.
Yeah.
I'm allowing myself to be me. I'm allowing myself to have honesty, vulnerability, intimacy, trust. So when I hear you say what I like about her, being seen and she gets you, awesome.
Mm-hmm.
That stuff isn't going anywhere. That's the beautiful stuff. That's what you've learned. That's how this relationship is different. You are different in this relationship. Fantastic.
Yeah.
At some point, maybe years from now, you'll look back on, you know, this past week and go, right, I don't put myself in that position anymore.
Right.
Whether you're with her or not at that point, that's the growth and that's the learning.
Yeah.
Because you're tapping into the parts of you that you like in this relationship and the parts that you don't. It's not about her. And this is where we have boundaries. We're not going to put rules on her. We're not going to say, no, you can't drink. Well, you can't black out at 10 a.m., but you can black out at 10 p.m.
Right.
That's just rules.
It's more so that we're on the same page, which is great for me. But to answer your question that I keep beating around of who am I in this relationship? I'm the best I ever have been. I've never been so motivated. I've never been so happy. I've been fucking sad too and upset and mad, but a lot less than I have in the rest of my life.
Could we say that means you've been more present in the relationship?
Absolutely. I've been a lot more present in this relationship, and it feels like a real relationship where if something doesn't go right, it's not let's just yell at each other and fucking piss each other off and wake up the next day and pretend it didn't happen. It's more of okay, I'm really pissed off at you. Let's sit down and talk about it. And she does the same thing, which is exactly what I want in a relationship. In these situations, as traumatic as this fucking shit is, it really showed me who she was. Really see her true colors and what she really is. And I loved everything I saw.
Have you seen your true colors? Do you see who you really are?
Yep, definitely.
And you remember me saying this, I think. Don't shut down, double down.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I hear.
Yep. It's funny you bring that up because that's what I tell her too. I'm like, don't shut down, double down. This is yours. You need to walk through this and you need to process this and you need to do what is right for you in this. But I'm here by you doing it with you. I'm not going anywhere. I'm here. Process, do your thing. You know, if you want to talk, that's cool. Was like, this really hurts me too. I need to process. I need to go through this. And there's going to be some stuff we talk about. And there's going to be some stuff we don't talk about. But know that I am processing it and going through it the best way I know how. I've never done this.
Right. And that's the doubling down. That's the moving towards the thing. You're actually doing it. How you are in this relationship is, I don't run away from something. I don't just smoke and just haze it out. You go, wait, let's talk about this thing. Let's process this. Here's what I'm feeling. You've got to process your shit. I'm going to process mine right now. Here's what's going on for me.
Yeah. Which has been like, that's brand new for me and something I really, really like. I still have flags.
Yeah, you had a hell of a week. And it hits, you'll feel it, you'll take it on. You got to process a lot for her. I think you got to process a little for you, but I would say like there's still some for you that we need to discharge because you got into that state that take care of it, that cape on, take care of everybody. And you still had that in Seattle. Your Seattle trip was a lot different than you were planning on it being.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. It really was. And it might actually shock you to hear how my Seattle trip went. So like actually a really normal trip.
I'm actually glad to hear it. And part of like going through the traumatic thing you guys went through together, I bet being on the plane was actually like, okay, I don't have to be on guard the whole time. Maybe a little bit because you still had some trauma residue for sure.
Mm-hmm.
So there's still some residue on you now.
Yeah.
You had a good trip. You have a little clarity. You've processed a little bit with her. I think walking through it as there's a version that's her story, there's a version that's us, and then there's a version that's me. What did I go through? What happened to me? Shoot, I remember, I think it was your old place when you were like, man, I hit the pool. I haven't hit the pool since I've been here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Something for you that gives you like a little physical release that's not just a puff release. Giving yourself some time for you sometime this week is going to be really important.
Yeah, I've kind of already did that. And so I got a quick little lift in at her mom's apartment because their gym's open. So I was like, this is what I need. Give me 2 hours. I'll be back. I just need to go decompress for a little bit. You guys do your thing. I'll be back.
That's part of that discharge of getting that out. First and foremost, I'm sorry you went through this.
Thank you.
Really, because it does trigger you and it does bring you back to trauma that you've experienced before.
Yeah.
And it does shoot your system into that heightened adrenal state, into that fight or flight mode. And that's, it's a tough one to unlock.
Yeah.
I'm sorry you went through that. Yes, you handled it well. But part of handling it isn't just, did I put on the cape and take care of everybody? Did I take care of myself? Did I talk to my girlfriend about this? Did we get to process this? Did I recognize she's got her process, I've got my process? Did I recognize boundaries in this? Did I not just give her a rule and tell her to follow it? Like, yeah, you're doing this beautifully and you're showing up. You're doubling down. You're not shutting down. You're being there for this stuff.
Yeah. As shitty as it sounds, it feels really good to be able to walk through something like this and come out better on the other side and face it head on. It feels really good to be able to take a step back and look at it as, okay, I'm a lot more, I don't want to say grown, but that's the word that comes to mind. More big Drew than little Drew at this point in my life.
Yeah. I mean, look, we can call it, I'm a little more mature. I'm a little more evolved. I'm a little more me. I'm driving the ship. I'm not just reacting to things.
Right. Yeah. I'm more Green Beret now. I'm kind of finding that my pendulum's kind of settling more in the middle.
Yeah, man. Wow. A lot.
Yeah. But I'm okay. I'm okay.
Yeah.
And it's not, I'm not okay and that's okay.
I actually am okay. Right. Because I'm moving to the thing that's not okay. And by virtue of doing that and processing it, I really am okay.
Yeah.
Oh, man. That is growth.
Yeah, right? This is way different than the conversation. If this should happen to me a year ago, oh my God. Who knows?
Yeah.
Thank you for working with me.
I love doing this. And this is partly why I get to see your growth. It's another thing too about the recording too, is people are seeing your growth and they're applying it to themselves. You're helping a lot of people.
Wow. That's incredible. And that's the whole point.
Hey guys. So, wow. I have so much to say. I don't even know where to start. First and foremost to say, fuck, man. What a shitty, shitty thing to have happened and to go through and deal with. And on Drew's end is what I'm talking about.
Right.
What you guys talked about in the session. He even said it was the scariest night of his life.
Right.
I found it to be pretty important to like sort of quote him directly. And he started off by saying his girlfriend was raped and basically kidnapped.
Right.
So we'll start with that. And that luckily he was able to find her on her phone where he doesn't know what could have ended up happening.
Well, and he even said, like, here's the condensed version. And he gave that to me. And he did throw in more details that I didn't include in the episode. We had to cut some of it out because it was identifying, as we always do.
Yeah.
It was something that, when he says she was pretty much kidnapped, I'll let you get into it, but it's not like it was somebody completely unknown. it was slightly different than that. And
Well, your own parents can kidnap you.
totally. I mean, you're held against your will. I mean, that's enough right there.
Right.
I will say, like, I'll preface this with my slant in the session was I'm listening to Drew and watching him and seeing what affected him and trying to get to, as I said later, getting to his story. So my overall view was his story. I think what, Mary, what you and I are hearing when we hear the session back is, but it brought up a lot of stuff for us as a listener when we're being subjective of our experience or objective for the world, not as therapists to Drew.
And that's true for sure. My client is my client. So I'm going to be there for them and talk it through with them. And of course, as usual, there are 1,000 things I would have done differently than you. I would have asked a ton of questions, which neither here nor there. One way is not right or wrong.
Right.
I left this session feeling so confused. I am like, literally, I still do not understand what happened. So there's the facts, and then there's the feelings.
Sure.
And then there's also what it triggered for him and what it brought up for him and all those things.
Right. And when you say like, not exactly sure what happened in the session and kind of what I was saying in my preface to it, my main charge is what happened to him, what he experienced mentally and emotionally, right? What he went through, not necessarily what she went through or what happened with this guy or the cops or even flying back to Seattle right afterwards. Those were details and those were peripheral to me with him and his story.
Yeah, except for the fact that his story is incomplete. There are so many holes in his story or her story. And the fact that he's like, I have a lot of questions and I don't know that I'll ever know the answers.
Sure.
I mean, I'm going to start with the ones that just come to my head.
Yeah.
So Drew at some point said he spoke to the guy and so did her mom for like 3 hours or so. I don't even remember what he said. That like they spoke multiple times, right? Over a period of time, he kept saying, oh, I'm bringing her home. I'm bringing her home.
Right.
So when he gets on the phone with a strange dude and he's telling her, don't go. At that point, he can see her phone. Why didn't he drive down there and get her? That's my first question. Now, I get it that like sometimes we're in our head and we're like, wait, it's just all unraveling so quickly. And why didn't the mom go get whatever it is? I don't know. And then after the mom called the cops, Drew was still talking to her after that. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, why are you still not in your car, dude? Again, these are just the thoughts that came up.
Sure. I can answer some of those for you. And there's some reasons why I didn't ask some of these and some I might have, and we might have put that in there, but we had to cut certain things out.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like he's 20 minutes away. He's 2 hours away.
Right. No, I know. He's a couple hours. Yeah.
Right. And his main goal, what he was saying is, I want to make sure he's safe. Like when he was talking to the police and they were asking him a bunch of questions, he said, can you ask your questions later? Can you just get there? He was trying to coordinate all this from his house on the computer, on the phone. And the moment he gets in the car to drive down there, he's at the mercy of whether or not she's going to be calling him or he's going to be calling her.
Why? He can still see on his phone where she is.
Yeah, but he's driving. It's hard to do when you're driving. It's hard to navigate that.
I mean, sure, I get it.
I mean, he's just going into that mode of, okay, hang on, let me be like command center from right here and coordinate this.
Okay, fair enough.
Remember, he's trying to understand what's going on. And as he's doing that, he's realizing he's talked to her throughout the night. So he said he's heard her get progressively more fucked up, progressively drunker, sounded like she might have been drugged. She was out of it. And it's really hard. And if you've ever either been with somebody in that position or been in that position, some things that you might describe or might hear described aren't exactly what's really happening.
Totally.
So he's trying to figure all that out and make sense of this and handle this. And my guess was, and I don't know entirely, that she was on and off the phone with him. He was calling the guy and she was saying like, "What are you trying to get me killed? Stop doing that. What are you doing?" he said at one point at first, he didn't like the thought that was popping up in his head of, is she cheating on me? What's going on here? He wasn't sure if she was lying or not.
Right. Okay. So then, and again, we'll get to all the other stuff, but police came. He's like, run out of there. I'm like, okay. And then at the same time, then they interview both of them. This guy has a contradictory story, right? He says she just got drunk and came over.
Right.
So I'm saying, first of all, why didn't they do a rape kit and take her to the hospital? And why wouldn't they have arrested the guy right there? Because if someone claims rape, like that's usually what happens. You say they raped you, they take you and then try and look into it all. You know what I mean? But the rape kit thing is beyond me. Do you know why?
Well, I have a better idea from some of the stuff that we talked about in the tone of the session. And I say this not to diminish or downplay what happened at all.
Mm-hmm.
When the police got involved and they were saying, they were looking at it like, well, she was drunk. She went back to some guy's house and then things got out of control. It wasn't clear whether or not she was actually raped. Like if there was something that would have shown up on a rape kit or if she was just with somebody being held against her will. Either way, it's horrible.
But did she say she was raped?
She might have said that to Drew. I don't know what she said to the police.
But did she tell Drew she was raped?
I mean, he said she was raped. That she said that at the beginning of the session.
But he never said it again.
No, he never said it again. And he was saying in kind of his tone when he was like trying to understand how much of it was consensual, even if it was consensual in that state of mind, in terms of not the actual act, but in terms of, was she willingly going to his house? Was she willingly there? Were they messing around? He calls it rape because he's like, she didn't want it to happen. After whatever it escalated to, she was not okay with it. That's the line for him.
You mean even after it happened and she decided maybe she wasn't okay with it?
I don't know what happened still to this day. And I don't know if she was actually raped, if there was any sexual activity. I imagine there was some, but I don't know to what degree. And to me, it doesn't matter to what degree. It was just something happened against her will when she was messed up. That's not okay, ever.
Did it? That's the question. Did something happen against her will while she was messed up?
Well, there's two pieces to that. Was it against her will?
Right.
And
that's my question.
What happened? I mean, look, at the very least, I'm sure they made out.
Okay.
That's not rape, but that's sexual assault.
It's not sexual assault if it was not against her will.
And that's what we don't know because she was on a substance, but she might have been drugged. He might have drugged her. We don't know that.
So this whole thing could actually be her being wasted, going back to some dude's house, making out or maybe having sex with him, and then freaking out and maybe being so wasted she didn't know where she was, or she was like out of her mind and scared.
Right.
It could be just that.
Yes.
Okay. So my question then is, whoa, if that's really all it was, then what is this entire session about? And I get that it's his experience, but at the same time, let's take a step back and assume based on his first sentence that she was raped, right? Kidnapped and raped.
Okay.
He starts talking about, I don't know if I trust her or not. And I'm like, what the fuck, dude? Your chick gets raped and you're not sure if you trust her? I don't care if she's lying naked in the middle of the street. Like, what does that have to do with trust? I get that his first thought initially was, she cheating on me? Like, did she go back there? But once you cross this line of, no, my girl was raped, what is your question of trust? Because I theoretically should be allowed to go back to some dude's house wasted that I've never met in my life and not get raped.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Right?
When you throw in a substance, whether it's alcohol or any kind of drug, in combination with that or not, that gets so muddled. We just don't know.
Right.
And I err on the side of, well, if there's ever any confusion, then it's not okay. For what Drew was describing, he was saying that they were in touch throughout the evening, via text, via phone. So
that's the confusing part.
Right. So it seems like where he was coming from was she seems okay. She seems okay. Then she's, she wants to leave. The sister and friends are still out, and she's going to go home with some friend of a friend. And is this a series of decisions throughout the night that are not okay with you? And he was like, yeah,
sure.
It was a series of decisions I'm not okay with. And all of that was secondary to, I want to make sure she's okay. Something happened to her. Something traumatic happened. And I don't care. I'm taking care of her.
Right. But did something traumatic happen to her?
Yeah. I mean, at one point she locked herself in the bathroom, was like making calls to Drew, to her mom, scared, I'm not okay. And I mean, look, when I was a teenager, I got messed up at parties, and I remember leaving a message for my mom and freaked out. And then later I'm like, oh my God, did I really say all that? I was so messed up. Right.
Right.
So I don't know what was going on, but whatever it was traumatizing for her in that moment. And to me, more importantly, in the session, it was traumatizing for Drew to be hearing it and going through this helplessness of, I'm not there and something's happening.
Yes.
I mean, we even said this, one of his worst fears is something horrible is happening when I can't take care of it.
Right.
So he was putting on the cape as best he could with, I can't get there instantly, but I'm going to get the cops there because I don't know what's happening, but she needs to get out of there and she doesn't feel safe. So cops just get there. I know her general location. And that's when he said the cops got there. He was talking to them and coordinating all this. And he was like, okay, they're in the basic vicinity where she is. So just get out of that house and run into the middle of the street and the cops will come find you because they're right around where your location is.
Right. And then they did. And it sounds like this dude was like, there's a police report. Doesn't sound like anybody was charged with anything. It just sounds like he was like, nah, dude. You know what I mean? But meanwhile, she's running out of the house to escape for her life.
This is all secondhand and actually third hand.
I know,
so it might be she was embellishing that or saying that or really messed up.
Right.
Who knows? We don't. And to me, again, as a therapist, it's secondary. What we're kind of looking at, like the details part is, well, what did happen? What was going on? And some of it we just can't know.
Right. Okay. So here's my thing.
Yeah.
Big picture, if he hasn't asked the questions, which I think he probably hasn't asked a lot of them. And I think he said at some point, he's trying to make sense of it. He realized it doesn't make sense. And there's a lot of questions that won't be answered. Right. My thing is, are you guys having this session? Is he going through all of this trauma, all of this deep trying to process and recover and deal with it and blah, blah, blah? Is he going through all of this when in all reality, nothing really happened other than maybe his girlfriend cheated on him, which is horrible. But if he hasn't discerned whether or not she was literally raped, then I don't understand why it's almost like he's acting like a victim.
Well, yes, that's partly what a trauma response can do to somebody. And when you and I talked about this and I gave you the heads up of, this might be a heavy session. He says she was raped because he says that in the beginning of the session, right?
Yeah, but he never says it again. And it's so weird to me.
Exactly. Which is why, to me, as somebody hearing this, it wasn't about what happened to her. It was, wow, he got triggered by something. He didn't bring it up. Still to this day, he hasn't talked deeper about it because for him, what I get from his understanding is it wasn't I don't know how to say this sensitively, a textbook rape. It wasn't anything that showed up on a rape kit. I don't think there was actual sex that happened. There might have been. I don't know. But through my understanding of Drew's understanding, it wasn't something like that was prosecutable.
Oh.
It was not okay. It was definitely a violation. She was taken somewhere and held against her will there. It might be that she willingly went there, drunk or not, that she willingly started fooling around and at some point was like, oh, I don't want to be here. I just need to get out of here. And the guy might have, pure speculation, said, well, I'm not in any shape to drive. Just sleep it off here. Don't worry. I won't touch you.
Right.
I have no idea.
Right.
But the sense I got from him was there wasn't anything that black or white, cut and dry as this crime happened in terms of an actual rape. A potential crime happened in terms of an assault or something against her will, but it wasn't enough of the story for him that he was holding that it was, here are the details of this thing. It was more like, here's the trauma that it stirred up in me.
Right. Okay. So just for our listeners, we know that when Doug said textbook rape, when he said, I don't know how to say this, but so that's not a thing, right? We know that. There is, I'm sure in the criminal code, there is certain things that do have to happen for it to be considered by the law, right? So textbook in that way.
Right.
Any unwanted touching, anything obviously is assault, battery, rape, sexual assault, any of it, not okay. But I think the problem that I'm having is it's really difficult to know for me whether this is like, of course, Drew can have his feelings and his guilt and all these things, assuming that there was any sort of sexual assault. If there was, and he's convinced about that, right? And yet he's like, well, I don't know if I trust her, or she put herself in this position, or then I'm like, And if she's just straight cheated on him, then I'm like, So I don't know. For me, it's like, I understand the trauma that it brought up, but I guess part of me is wondering, would he feel so traumatized if he found out that everything was fine? She just cheated on him. And obviously that's still traumatic, but like, would that alleviate his response of like, I couldn't save her, I couldn't help her, like those feelings? I would imagine.
No, I would imagine not. This is where I strongly disagree.
Okay.
I think no matter what, he went into that mode, that fight or flight, that he even said it was the scariest night of my life. I guarantee you it wasn't. It was the most recent scariest night of his life.
Right.
It brought him to that feeling of 2 or 3 in the morning, whenever it was, that something went wrong to someone I love when I'm not there to make sure they're okay.
And he also was thinking, I was wondering, did she like it?
Right.
And then he was like, of course she fucking didn't like it. Like, yes, I validate those things. And I also 1,000% validate, by the way, if she was raped, that is still a question that many men, if it's a female or vice versa, ask themselves. They just do. And there's a very natural, horrible, unfortunately, for the person that got raped, but it's a natural response. Why did you put yourself in that position? What were you doing? This is your fault. Did you like it? I can't believe another man got to fuck my wife. Like, even though it is rape, those are natural, I think, inherent instincts that come to mind and question. And that's on the flip side where, of course, this is a private session where this man gets to talk about his girlfriend potentially or actually getting raped. We get the privilege of hearing what it's like for this man to have these thoughts that he's also feeling guilty about. Right. And so that is, I think, because when we hear this kind of stuff in a movie or TV show, it's portrayed like this person is so evil for thinking those things. And at the end of the day, it's like this process that he goes through back and forth. Then he judges himself for having these thoughts and for questioning, does he trust her? And so I can see all of these things. And if he was my client in session, I would never be like, wait, what, dude? You think it's her fault? Like, I would never say that.
Right.
What I would say is, well, all of these thoughts and feelings that you're having are totally natural and normal. I'm just wondering why you haven't collected more facts so that you can at least have a better idea of actually what happened. So maybe your questioning about trust is alleviated some, or is there anything that would change for you if you knew more details? Maybe not.
Well, and okay, right. But like I hear this and I go, okay, maybe in time, but at the time, that's irrelevant. You go into a certain mode and cognitively your brain shifts. He was in a different state of mind that night. And regardless of what the details were, it wasn't going to change what his response was. He went into that mode and it was partly a trauma response. And he even said, I think he said something at some point like, it's not the accumulation of things or leaving all my past things behind. And it wasn't that. Well, it actually is. Those are the neural pathways that we have connected. That's what your brain knows. It pulls its frames of reference. unconsciously your brain put that together and responded that way.
Right.
Because of a lot of these things.
Yes. But okay. So then he says, everyone in my life, like, they're like, dude, you should probably think about that. And I'm like, all the people you told that she was raped?
Right. So that I don't know. If you remember, in the scheme of where Drew is with his relationship, the past couple weeks, we've been talking about him having these tough conversations with her, him being able to say, hey, I don't think this is the relationship I really want to be in.
Right.
And there's part of me as a therapist that's going, wow, we were just having this talk and talking this way. And then something like this happens where you go into rescue mode.
Right.
And he even said, it stuck out for me because it was like, oh, I don't know if that's the right word, but okay. He said his past animosities of being hurt.
Yes.
He was like, that's out the window. It's just, it didn't matter. And it didn't matter what happened. I just wanted to make sure she was safe.
Right.
And I'm kind of looking at, I want to make sure you're safe, dude. Like, what's going on with you?
Well, I'm going to say no to that, because then he starts, this is like one of my favorite parts. So he says, yeah, I mean, she drinks, dude, but who doesn't? I mean, it's not like she blacks out at 10 in the morning. I mean, that one time she did, but you know,
right.
And you were like, you literally said, I'm not buying that shit. Sorry, dude.
Right.
I was like, thank fucking God. When he said, and it's not like she blacks out at 10 in the morning. I mean, except for that one time, I was like dying. I was like, well, here we go, Drew.
Right. And that's making excuses for something, right?
Oh, yeah. I was like, here's your mom that you're doing this with again. At one point, he was saying, why did it happen to him? And I was like, are you kidding? And then I know, like, no, I get it. I do get that. Like, nobody wants to have this happen at all, whether it impacted him or it happens directly to him.
And he said that. And I think right where you're talking about was the moment where he was saying, like, nobody's giving her a chance. They're not taking time to hear the things that I hear and hear why I like her. And he was like, my parents, the police, and friends.
Yeah, that was confusing.
Right.
Why did the police give a fuck why you like your girlfriend?
Well, it was more like when he was talking about the police report, and the guy, like, I think he said the lead detective kind of took me aside and was like, hey, man, what are you doing here? Like, you seem like a good guy. She went home with a guy and they were a little messed up, and this happened. Like,
right.
What are you doing here? And he's like, and this is just evidence-wise what it looks like to us. And we didn't get into the details of all that too much.
Right.
But enough for where him really saying, like, nobody's getting to know her or hear why I like her. And my spin on that, if you remember, was not like, I'm not going to talk to him about why you like her, but I spun it with like, well, okay.
Why do you like you in this relationship?
Exactly.
But also, nobody's giving her the chance. Like 2 weeks ago, he was talking about breaking up with her. And now all of a sudden, no one's giving her the chance to, like, come on, dude. I get it. You're having this protective moment of like saving her. And he said he's the happiest he's ever been in this relationship. Like, nope. I think you were happier before you were in this relationship.
Yeah.
Then he says, I mean, don't get me wrong, dude. I still have flags. And I was like, okay,
right.
Well, you still have flags. And yet you're like getting really upset that everyone else won't get to know her. So like, I get it. This isn't all a dialectic. He's conflicted. He's confused. This shit is crazy that it even happened. So I understand he's talking it out. He's processing it. We're hearing one part of one session right after this happens. He's allowed to have whatever thoughts and feelings he wants. I think the lawyer in me, the curiosity in me, the logical person in me wants to know what happened. So I can help him figure out how he feels based on that. I know that there's so much more than that. I know regardless of what truly happened, he went through these motions and thoughts and all of this stuff that did happen that night. And so no matter what, if he found out it was all a hoax, he still went through all that.
Exactly. And there's 2 points I got to make, because you, being a lawyer, just hit something that I was going out with. I was in a relationship with somebody who was, probably still is, a public defender. And she would explain to me what the phrase reasonable doubt really means. And she said, look, if you ever hear about a situation and you feel like you need to see the video footage of exactly what happened, that means you have reasonable doubt as to what happened.
Yep.
If that's the barometer, you need to prove something beyond any reasonable doubt. You need to prove something so that you don't have to look at the camera footage. You know.
Yep.
And this is something where there is certainly a lot of reasonable doubt as to what happened, regardless of it being the actual rape. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about what happened, everything.
Right.
And that's point one for me. Point two is Drew really did slip back into a mode, that rescue mode.
He did.
And defending her. Like, they don't know her the way I know her. Let me tell you some of the good stuff. And let me tell you some of this. And
totally.
And he's defending the same way.
Just like his mom.
Yes. Yes. And that defend turns into blame after a while. Yeah. He was defending his mom, then blaming his mom. That's the dialectic. That's, you can blame and defend.
Totally. And you said, who the fuck are you if you're not putting on a cape and rescuing everybody?
Right.
And then I think he's vacillated. He was like, I feel like I'm trying to have these boundaries. And then it turns out this shit's all fucked up. And it's kind of like, if there are some times that if he hadn't answered his mom text, she could be dead right now. So then he's like, let's say she did text him and he's like, nope, I'm having boundaries. I'm not responding. And she died. So I think, once again, this falls into that. Mm-hmm. If I'm not there, like you guys talked in the beginning, if I'm not there to save them, then something bad's going to happen. And guess what? Like, maybe, but you can't be there to save everyone all the time.
Right. And that's which we've talked about. And one of the things two of the things that he said that really struck me in the session, hearing it back, he said, it's very hard for me to sit back and do nothing. That's what I found is best for me, is just to sit and be and talk. Uh-huh. And when she can't talk with him with that same vulnerability, it really sticks out and it's really hard. When she can, here's the second thing that sticks out for me in this is he said, and this is to me almost the very definition of a trauma bond. He said, in situations that are traumatic as this stuff, it showed me her true colors and I could see who and what she really is. And I loved everything I saw. That's when I said the thing about like, okay, and did you get to see who you really are?
Right.
And really like pushing. And I think we even brought in the double down, don't shut down. Like you're moving towards the thing and you're getting to talk through that. And if you're doing that, that's kind of who you are. Your true colors is as he said, it's best for me to just sit and be and talk and to be able to do that and process things. And he was big on that. Part of what we cut is him talking about his last relationship and saying like, yeah, we couldn't have these kinds of talks. We couldn't talk about something. And I'm also hearing it in my head as, oh, you mean you didn't get to bond over some kind of trauma like that.
Right.
You didn't get that closeness and that situation that you shared, that shared experience of something traumatic that now you guys are in it together. It's us against the world.
Right.
Nobody gets it. Nobody understands but us in this bubble.
Yeah. And then at the end, he said, he thanked you. He was like, God, this would have been so different a year or so ago. And then you pointing out like, yeah, this is like us recording this. This is just like helping people, like helping so many people.
Yeah.
We want to definitely caveat here that any unwanted touching of any human in the world is unacceptable and horrible. And this isn't about if she wasn't. Obviously, this is Drew's session and his feelings and thoughts. And my inquiries are because of this is how my mind works and how I would be in a session with somebody. And Drew's vulnerability, I think we're all grateful for being able to listen in on this and so appreciate it and appreciate the conversations that it sparks. But just to reiterate, there is no right or wrong here during this session because we are all allowed to talk about our thoughts, feelings, behaviors with our therapist without being judged for it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why for this whole session, I'm going with him. I'm challenging him on some things. I'm being sensitive to what happened, but I'm looking at what happened to him, what his story was. We talked about that. Even like, okay, well, what's your story? Let's shift to your story. Because I don't want the details of what happened to her, what didn't happen to her. I want to know what was happening for you. I want us to process you in this. And him saying, when he thanked me, saying like I think he said something like, as shitty as it is, it really feels good to walk through this and come out on the other side. being able to face it. And something I love that he said, like that idea, I think I said, it sounds like maturity or your evolution as a person and growing. And he said, yeah, I'm much more big Drew than little Drew at this point in my life.
Yeah.
And it was really cool to hear. And then when I was saying, like, it's great that you're doing this because you're processing this and people are listening to it. People are seeing your growth and hopefully they're growing too and they're applying that. And we cut a little bit at that end, but he was saying, like, it's incredible to be helping people. And he stopped for a minute and was like, wow. Yeah. I mean, just the thought that people could hear what I'm doing and they could benefit from it and they can grow from it. I mean, it's something that he really loves and why he was such a great fit for the podcast and for having sessions recorded is he really does want people not just to hear his own growth, but he wants them to learn and grow also. It's his way of giving back to people. So I love that that's happening and he's appreciative of it. I think in all of this, whatever informs people, whatever brings the hard things that normally cause some to shut down, whatever allows people to then double down and have the conversations like we're having about this. I mean, some of our Facebook discussion threads on the Facebook group, people bring up stuff like this, and to be able to talk about it in a place where we're not judging, we're not blaming, we're just thinking things out and allowing ourselves that to debrief from it. It pains me to think of how many people go through things like this and don't have a support system around them, not just a therapist, but they don't have people around them that they can kind of debrief and help see this stuff. Even the guy, the guy who, we can call him a perpetrator. We don't know what happened. And this not going to be a very popular thing to say.
No, I was going to say the same thing, to be honest. We all have our shit.
We have no idea. From his perspective, he's like, oh, here's this girl who's a little messed up. I'm a little messed up. She's interested. I'll take her home. Cool. We can have a good time. He might not think that anything wrong happened.
Or, by the way, oh, this is my friend's friend. She's wasted. Of course, I don't mind like taking her home. That was it.
Right.
And then maybe she initiated something or, you know what I mean? Or maybe he completely kidnapped her and raped her. We don't know. That's what makes me insane.
Somebody who was, probably still is, a public defender would explain to me what the phrase reasonable doubt really means. And she said, look, if you ever hear about a situation and you feel like you need to see the video footage of exactly what happened, that means you have reasonable doubt as to what happened.
Yep.
If that's the barometer, you need to prove something beyond any reasonable doubt. You need to prove something so that you don't have to look at the camera footage.
Yep.
I don't need to see these trees. I see the forest and I can focus on my client, what's happening for him. I don't need the details. And it drives you nuts. Like when we talk about stuff like this, not just for Drew, but in general. And you're like, but wait, but what happened? But what was this? I need to know. Tell me.
Yeah.
You need the details. I'm like, I don't know. It's not relevant. Let's look at this. And you're like, I can't look at this until I know this.
The forest through the trees. I can only see like the leaves and the twigs and I cannot see the forest. So, and again, it all works one way or another, but you're welcome to let us know your thoughts and feelings. And just remember, we're all human and there is no black or white here because we don't actually know.
I can tell you one thing we do know is when you keep this stuff inside, it is really, really hard to make sense of it and process it and move through it. And it will influence how you deal with just about everything else in your life.
Yes.
Right. And that's why when he said, I'm not holding the past animosities, I'm like, yeah, you are. Your system is. Absolutely. We always do.
100%.
Him going through this, I'm grateful that he's talking to me about this stuff in session.
Yeah.
It means he's processing, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
You guys, if you want to process with us, we invite that. Find us on social media, that Facebook group. There's discussion threads. Really would love to hear what you guys think about this. We get a lot of opinions. I tend to think that our listeners are fairly enlightened thinkers because they're listening to a podcast about mental health.
Yeah, they share their feelings and communicate effectively.
I've seen some letters that come to us. People bring something to our attention like, oh, wow, that's a really good point. And they don't do it as, how could you say this? Or why would you do this? They go, hey,
Yeah.
I heard this. And that might be a really, really good thing to talk about. I'm like, it would be a good thing to talk about. Let's do that. And we've got some things that we're planning to do to address some of the things you guys have brought up, because we are human after all. I think everybody's human. And that idea of, can we get everything right all the time? No, we can't. We can try to be as intentional, mindful, and effective as we can. And hopefully we're constantly growing.
Yep. So thanks, guys. Thanks for being a part of this. And yeah, we'll talk with you next week. Bye.